Hello, everybody. My name is Ulfgarður, and welcome back to Yvardsaga. I apologize for the slightly delayed session tonight, both in the fact it's on Thursday and not Wednesday, and also it's happening about 20 minutes later than usual. Yesterday, I had a sudden, unexpected, uh, call it what it is, a PTSD thing yesterday, and even though like I was okay, all said and done by the time we were in the evening about ready to play, my brain wasn't still. I wouldn't have been able to handle all the mental stuff of running a game. But I say that not to like, I don't know. I have long made it a thing on the channel, if you haven't been here for a while, to try and be open and honest about mental health, because particularly I think male veterans have a bit of a thing with that. And so I try and be at least a little bit of an inspiration. Howdy, 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 Carl. Good to see you. Thanks for showing up on our completely off tilt time. But so yeah, that's what happened yesterday while we were playing tonight. And then we're starting a little bit late because everybody involved but me had a really long day and all got back home at about the same time that was really close to start time. So everybody needed to like eat and breathe and such. So Carl, I hope you did not have a super long day, because so far between me, the three players, and you, I'm the only one that like it wasn't at least like somewhat long by my knowledge. So I hope you've been doing well, and that your weather we encountered last time when we were chatting was not too bad. It sounded like it was mostly wrapping up. But since we are off to kind of a late start, I figure let's just go ahead and jump in. Um, so we're going to get the ball rolling. In summary, if you didn't see it on the screen or reading's not your thing, perfectly okay. Um, the party last time mostly got to know their friends that they saved from the fire, and they learned a couple things. I got back from an out of town work experience the other night, putting up a brand new pavilion at a house that blew up in the fall. Oh my gosh, I'm sure there was a lot of stuff to learn at that work experience. Good heavens. I hope it was enjoyable in any aspect. I'm sure that would just be wild, and some of the like conditions you have to work in and like the challenges involved. Um, but sorry, trying to keep track. I did a lot of prep work and like DM world building stuff today, so my brain is catching up with the wheels that have been spinning all day. But so they got to know these characters a little bit. We learned that the Owlin that they rescued is named Shoko, um, and the Goliath is named Varrock, and they are here on behalf of some library, as all the party's been able to figure out, because Nemo may or may not have poked around in their things and used comprehend languages in some of Shoko's books. Um, they're here on behalf of some library to do research on apparently the same set of ruins the party has been looking for. So they figure, why not? Let's work together. They also found out that Shoko and Varrock were in the Myconid village because they didn't have permission to be traveling this area either, and they were imprisoned and sentenced to be executed. And in the attempt of escaping, Shoko admitted she accidentally started the fire that wiped out the colony. Um, so there is that, but everybody seems to be getting along okay so far. And I kind of glanced over some fast travel to get them to the doors, so we're gonna hop back real quick and address a couple things about like the fast travel time. But then we made it. We made it to the ruins they've been looking for, and we're gonna see if this is where they need to be and if they can find what they need to find. It was not enjoyable. It was cold, and two of us were the only people there to do it. Oh God, I'm sorry, Carl. That sucks. That really sucks. Well, hopefully we can take your mind off it tonight with some D&D shenanigans. Alrighty. Here's that. Here's that. Carl, I have attempted to tweak my background music settings, but there is slight background music that should come on. Please let me know if it's too loud, or if you, mostly if it's too loud. If you don't hear it, I won't fuss it too much, but that's my main concern, is if it's too loud. But it should just be like kind of ambiance background music on a loop. So should do okay. Oh no, that's the wrong button. Okay, friends, we ready?
Perhaps.
Yeah.
Excellent.
The
That
real
sounds
question is, are
monotone.
you ready?
I don't fucking know, dude.
To rumble?
Oh,
You
don't.
can't say that. That's copyrighted.
It is. It is. Two
Oh.
people said it though, so we're good.
Uh-oh.
I get.
Eh,
I have to stop myself from saying it every time though, because as a kid, I used to be able to do the Bruce
Yeah.
Banner voice pretty good.
well, too bad. They can copyright this ass.
There you go. Good save. Good save, buddy. Okie
Alright.
dokie. So, last time you guys got to meet your new companions. You agreed to travel to the ruins together because they seem to have a wealth of knowledge. Maybe not a wealth of knowledge, but more knowledge about this in some aspects than you do. Um, Nemo's
Oh,
snooping around and use of spells revealed that they are working for some library somewhere. Um, and I kind of glanced over some fast travel stuff, mostly because I wanted us to at least get to this physical starting point. Is there anything we didn't discuss in the just players chat that you guys would want to bring up?
You might want to talk about what we had in the chat so that everyone else is in on that.
You want
Just
to share knowledge?
Well, it's like I don't know. If I
um,
were a viewer,
do you mean the chat just in response to me prompting for questions?
yeah.
Yes. I just wanted to make sure before I started on that, if you guys thought of anything else you would like addressed.
Oh
I
no,
mean, you know what a Yejier wants.
eggs, owlin eggs.
That's
No,
true.
that seems
Yes.
weird.
I'm not gonna lie. I kind of forgot because it wasn't in text, but fortunately, that's the subject matter of
uh,
all of these things. I probably know the best offhand.
yeah, she very much wants all their knowledge on the brain rot.
Okay.
Give.
Okay. Um.
What about their eggs? They don't need those.
Let's start with that then, since they know about this disease that seems to very much put a fire under Yajie's butt about knowledge and anything related to it. You've seen her light up, which this is maybe the second time you've seen it, but anyway. Um, so, hold on, I need to roll a thing.
I don't like that.
well, you just started.
It's fine. It's fine. Don't worry about it.
I'm just asking questions.
Yeah, I'm just giving answers.
Suspiciously.
um,
He's been down here a long time, breathing in cave air. He might be struggling to remember.
um, so apparently, I I'm probably going to glance over some of these answers for now for the sake of progressing.
Hmm.
So I'll summarize a bit, and I apologize. Please do slow me down and let me know if you have further answers. I'm happy to spend time on it, even if I'm not full character voice RPing.
Yeah.
But as far as the mind rot, Ayegie, I imagine you would probably be speaking to Varkon at least in Giant, because he doesn't
Mhm.
speak Common. Um, Nemo and Cole, would either of you be attempting to eavesdrop or intuit things from that discussion?
Uh,
No, it's
I mean,
whatever she's talking about. It doesn't have anything to do with this.
Fair.
You think?
From what I can tell, you're talking about mind rot, and he's going.
Fair. Um,
Nemo's a people watcher.
fair. And now that you have made it very clear for the audience that you have comprehend languages, I wanted to make sure, one way or the other, if you were planning on using that to pick up on any of these conversations.
She doesn't have to be. When I forget my own damn spells. Hold on.
Yeah, is comprehend language for spoken as well?
No, it's not. It is just for written, isn't it?
I think it's just for
think
written
so.
because she has to touch it.
Yeah, it is. That's right. I forget that a lot. Thank you for correcting me.
It sounds like tongues or whatever.
Oh,
Yes, tongues.
no, wait, you understand the literal meaning of any spoken language that you hear.
Oh, okay.
Oh, but Nemo is nosy.
Oh no, I forgot that it's literal language.
Yeah.
Good fucking luck.
So,
Oh boy, a language with a lot of euphemisms and weird phrases is going to be probably even harder to track.
like someone asks her like what they're saying. Someone fucked the goat. I think something to do with the goat.
That must be the literal part of the spell. I don't know. Turns out you're just
I
talking
think
about.
that's a kenning for a bad time.
Yeah, right.
yeah.
But yes, were you planning on using that at all? This would be during travel. You would have long rests before we pick up where we are on the map. So you wouldn't start short a spell slot. Okay, so you would learn this information too.
Cool.
Yeah, the main thing that you're able to get from them about the mind rot is TLDR. They're not entirely sure how it operates, but whatever library they're working for has been also trying to learn anything about it. They only recently became aware of it as a thing. But they seem to be taking it pretty seriously. But they're still like in the information gathering phase. The main advantage that they have over you as somebody that has any knowledge and experience with it is they have the resources of an institution to just have a wider search in their attempts to learn things. But one of the main things that they've learned is it doesn't behave like they understand most diseases to behave as far as like spreading. The it seems to be pretty consistent in its symptom set compared to a lot of other diseases they have in the records of their like medical stuff in their library. Because usually diseases have a selection of symptoms that aren't. It's not like you tick every single box every time a case of this is somewhere. But the mind rot seems to be a pretty uniform experience from what they can gather. And Nemo, you learn that the mind rot is some sort of disease going around up in the crown, affecting primarily Goliaths, but not exclusively. It's just hit the nomadic Goliath clans up in the crown significantly harder than it's hit anybody else. And it's a 2-week condition where from when you start showing the first couple of recognizable symptoms, you have 2 weeks before you die, and it is just your brain erodes over that period of time.
Ooh.
So it starts as fine motor skills and a little bit of like creativity and speech stuff start to not quite be up to par, and then it starts getting worse from there and ends up in like organ shutdown and nerve system failure. Um, the the last like 5-ish days out of that 2-week period is essentially the patient does not have any significant memory of who they are or what their life has been like. And it's like this for pretty much everybody, according to these historians that you're traveling with. They're looking to try and find a cure. Not these two specifically, but their library is. But they're trying to figure out what kind of malady it is. so that they can then try and find a cure based on that instead of just throwing any conceivable thing for disease types that it's clearly not at it and potentially wasting resources.
Mm-hmm.
So I will pause for question because I'm sure Pez has a few. Knowing Pez and her interest in this subject.
But have you considered how speepy I am?
Fair.
Mostly I was just gonna say Yajier will share it's mostly like old wives' tales, folk tales from when this first happened. So that was like a decade or so ago. A couple decades.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Yeah, it ended a couple decades ago, the last time it went through.
the last time it went through your area.
Yeah.
You've started to hear rumors of it popping up again.
Yeah. So
But yeah. Sorry.
so Yajier would tell the stories she knows kind of from her area, and it's not really like scientific or anything, but hey, some old remedies of honey, onion, and garlic work better than actual pharmaceuticals.
Yeah.
So she'll spread that knowledge even if it doesn't seem scientific. She's like, they might see a nugget in there that she has missed because she doesn't have other background knowledge.
Okay.
And we'll explain that she is also looking for a cure, mostly through experimentation.
Fair. Shoko takes pretty extensive notes of anything you have to say about it, because admittedly, this isn't her area of expertise or study, but she knows a couple people who were involved with it, and like Varkon is clearly not working on that right now. He's a cartographer. Uh, but he did mention earlier that he has lost people to the mind rot, so it's still a thing he's very invested in. So they both seem to be highly appreciative of your exchange of knowledge and experience. Um, for what it's worth, I don't remember if this is a thing we had ID'd out specifically, so correct me if I'm wrong, Ayegie, but I I'm fairly certain that you would not have directly interacted or like met anybody with mind rot. Like you would not have
No, it
seen
didn't.
its effects with your own eyes, but you would have heard of a couple cases popping up near your hometown, and that's enough for news to travel where you're from.
Yeah, if nothing else, people would have ancestor relatives in the crown who most
Oh
likely
yes.
died from it.
Yes.
So like I don't think she's had any close interaction, but she knows it affects her sorts of people.
Yeah.
So it is of interest. She'll also give the name of the ecologist that I can't remember the name of that she's working with.
Um I have that name. I will look it up here in just a moment. Because if nothing else, Nemo would hear this name, and I want Rad to have that information to work with if she so
Yay,
chooses.
info.
I just have to remember what sheet I put it on. Okay. It is in here.
It might be in Discord actually.
I don't think so. That's true. It probably is in there also.
It is in
It
Discord.
is in there also. Okay. Okay.
Sekai.
Yes, Sakai.
Sekai.
Yes. And Nemo, you would hear that Sakai is somebody that a Yajier has reached some sort of kind of not quite deal, but agreement with as far as like helping each other as a person from Sakai is an official ecologist that has been displaced from Summerstone, which is up in Gareland, because her ecology study office, was in the city that was recently taken in a surprise war. So she was displaced out of the city and forced to continue her research elsewhere. But her and Yajier have touched base and seem to have some sort of work agreement with each other. Um, Anything else? I suspect Nemo, you would probably pick up on this. Um, no, you would hear this because Varcone would absolutely bring it up. Um, I apologize, Pez, but this is probably how Nemo would learn your who, like who and what you are. Um, you learn that.
Yay, me nosy!
My secrets.
Yeah, sorry, but Varcone would have questions, and Nemo would hear those
Yeah.
questions. But you guys learn that Yejiye has identified herself as Lotan, or once or twice used the word Fjalkeen, and that means absolutely nothing to either of you. But you learn what that means is a Fjalkeen in the region that Yejiye comes from. Fjalkeen is a catch-all term for a person that has mixed ancestry between species that are considered indigenous in that region. Um, and Lotun is specifically like her combination of species and ancestry that make up like the traits that she has. So you learn that a Lotun up in Matavia Valley, which is north of Gairland, a Lotan is a half Goliath and half bugbear.
Yes.
So Nemo, your snooping gets you some unexpected nuggets to work with.
She's gonna play it cool. She's not gonna react. She's
Bet.
gonna try to like position herself in the marching orders so that they can't tell that she's clearly casting magic to eavesdrop.
Fair. Um. Yeah. Anything else, Yejiye, you would like to ask before I answer the questions posed by Nemo and Cole during travel?
None in my brain.
Okay. And this is something you guys, if you think of something you really wanted to ask, we're skipping over several days of travel.
Yeah.
So these questions, at least some of them, are things that we can probably retcon. If you think of
Oh,
questions later and just send it to me or ask it in a later session or send it to me between sessions and we can I might bring it up on stream somewhere if it becomes relevant, but at least I will answer it for you guys so you can use the knowledge you would learn.
Hooray!
I'm sure she'd talk mushrooms too, but I'm not too concerned about that at this exact moment.
Okay. Um, then up first, Cole, you produced that knife that you found, and with the intention of asking her if she knows anything about it.
Yeah.
Am I correct? The one
Yep.
you found in that weird hidden back room that had a chest that didn't really make sense?
That
Yes.
Ron fell through in the
Yeah,
previous room?
yeah, that Ron had trauma with from previous
Yeah. That
experience.
it is in fact that specific magic knife that I found in this campaign.
Okay.
That one.
Poison. The poison for Cusco.
Yes.
Cusco's
Cusco's
poison.
poison.
Exactly. That was the inspiration for the stupid bit I just did for no reason. Um, so you show it to her, and she actually does kind of a little excited click. Uh, that even to a low to moderate passive insight would be like she knows something. She's excited. Um, and what you learn about this is that this is a pretty rare tool from a bygone age that is in remarkably good shape. Like this is ages slash eras of the world old, probably two by her reckoning. Particularly from a village called Groenlan. Here, let me type that for you in chat so you
So
can
I hope
see.
you're taking notes because I'm not.
I am.
I don't do full time note taking in this campaign.
Uh, from
That's what an Ulf is for.
yeah, fortunately, all of these sessions are recorded.
Yeah.
Plug YouTube channel for VODs here. No. Uh, Groenlan, sorry. Groenlan. I tend to, for some reason, my North Carolina tends to come out for that word, even though I created the name. But Groenlan is the proper pronunciation of that goofy name. But this is a town in a region of the world called Ravendraw, where it's like northeast of the capital of Barrett It's it's particularly noteworthy in a sense because north of Barrett and east of the capital, a section of the Crown, this huge, horrendously dangerous mountain range that encircles the top of the world, this is like the only major spur that descends south past the crown of the world. And there's a little pocket region that's only accessible from the east that's not considered part of the crown. It's still considered part of the rest of the known world. But that is Ravendraw because on a map somebody once decided early on that it vaguely kind of looks like a raven's head, the shape of that whole little space. But Ravendraw at least would be a name you would all recognize. But she explains that that's where this village is, and it still exists to this day. It's a pretty heavy dwarven settlement, and it's pretty closed off. They're not very welcoming to outsiders, and never really have been. She Shoko has actually been there like twice, she says, and is not particularly excited to go back. There's cool history there, but the people make it hard to work or appreciate it. But
Is that
that
where the crazy wizards are?
do you ask her that?
No.
Okay. I have to clarify because
Nemo's inside thought.
because for what it's worth, I pre-rolled in anticipation. Well, I knew what questions you were asking, so I pre-rolled her knowledge in the responses she was able to give. And you're asking an historian to make a history check. So, congrats.
Yes.
Good call. So I do have to clarify. I understand what you are asking her because she will give you answers. But particularly Cole, back to the topic,
Mm-hmm.
in Groenlan, according to some, that's where possibly one of the potential places where back in ye olden ages past, before the maps of the world were made, the dwarves of Yvard used to live in the crown and live much like you would expect a fantasy dwarf to live in the caves, doing the whole under the mountain thing. That's not really a stereotype in Yvard anymore. It's just known to be long ago in dwarven ancestry. Uh, but Ravendraw and Groenlan is suspected to be one of the first places dwarves descended into the lowlands from the crown. Some people, according to Shoko, theorize that might be the first place dwarves ever actually made a settlement. And then she gets into a whole thing about how historians dispute stuff like that and they make it warfare when it's actually asinine to know. Uh, but she's like, it's a hot topic in the right circle of nerds. Um, but this this is from a long, long time ago in that space, and it is distinctive of Groenland. She's never heard of this kind of tool existing elsewhere, unless it was transported from this settlement. Where what this knife is she calls it a Nolnog stone cutter. Again, give me a second.
Could you please type that in the
Yes.
chat
Yes.
for me?
I tried to sound it
No.
out. I was like, wait,
I
no.
never remember that I
There's
intend
too many
to type
G's.
these things out. Too many G's. It's like I consider the language that these things are named from.
Yeah.
Hmm. Crazy. Uh,
Weird.
yeah, wild. And so what this is, according to stories, the only time she's really gotten to see or hear of any of them, like, or hear of any recent anythings about them, they've been as ancient as they are in really rough shape. Excuse me. And the magic in them was no longer there. So they were inert. And that's the first indication you get that she knows what kind of magic item this is.
Go
Uh,
on.
and you you will find out from her that this is an attunement item. From the stories she's heard and going through the normal attunement process of magic items, you will later be able to confirm this, and if you would like, you can be attuned to it when we arrive at the temple ruins.
Might as well.
So, according to the stories that she has heard and studied, once attuned to a Nulnog stonecutter knife, the wielder can cut through stone as if you are cutting through flesh or a comparably soft material. So you can cut through rocks. It's not a super long weapon, and it functions perfectly fine as a standard dagger in combat. And proficiency with it will let you use it in combat, but that's not historically what it was actually used for. It was used for crafting, to, take advantage of the fact that that's what it can do to interact with an otherwise difficult to work with material, or it can be used for navigating. One of the main things this was used for was if there was a rock slide in mountain passes or like off the side of the Crown Mountains into the Raven Draw, and they needed to like clear it or get through it for any reason, they would use these to slice the rocks through so that they didn't have to like heft and heave and drag animals out to haul, multi-ton boulders. They could take it away in chunks. But also, if you're attuned to it, it can sense whether you want it to move through stone or not. So you can stick this into a stone or like a cliff face, and if you don't want it to move, it will not move until you grab your hand on it and try to move it. And then the attunement connection you have with this magic item senses, we can groove now. Let's do the thing. But so if you ever need to like stick this into a cliff and hold on for dear life, it's not gonna just, since it can cut through stone, slide down like you're a pirate cutting through a canvas sail. Which Mythbusters proved was bullshit, and I stand by it to this day. I remember that episode very well. I watched a lot of pirate stuff as a kid. But she also says if you don't intend to keep it, like, she doesn't have the money to pay you for it because it would be decently valuable. She's not entirely sure what it would fetch because that's not necessarily her thing, but to the right people, you could make a decent chunk of money off of this thing if you didn't want to keep it for yourself. She does say if you die down here, she does ask if she can take it back to the library.
Paul will acquiesce to that. However, he can think of a lot of uses that he can have for it in his line of work.
Yeah.
So he plans to hold on to it. However, he'll try attuning to it and demonstrate to Shoko to see if it does in fact work, so she can witness that.
It
Can I push you
works.
off a cliff?
You guys would
No.
pass. You would be on the low end of some cliffs. Your journey here is mostly in the low parts of formations. You're not really going across any super high spaces right now.
But you have to retrieve the knife.
Yes. But the knife works exactly as she had expected it to. You don't have to make a conscious thought to move this knife or make it not move. It just does whatever
Nice.
you intend it to do in the stone. But it is specifically in stone. Wood,
Mm-hmm.
bone, metal does not count the same as stone for this. So metal is still treated as hard as it would be for any other knife.
Okay.
She
What
does.
about ore? Is ore not refined so that still counts?
You would have to find some and test.
Okay.
She does not know. And this is not a particularly great like metal vein section of the
Yeah.
underground.
But yeah, this is a tool, not a lightsaber.
Correct. And she does make note. She has heard there might be specific kinds of stone that aren't affected by its magic and respond normally. But she's not sure if any of them are actually true or if any of those stones exist on this plane, because from the one or two stories or like instances of this that she's heard, they're like stones imbued with magic from other planes. So like the elemental plane of Earth, you fight an Earth elemental, this might not cut through the Earth elemental the way you want it to. It might, she doesn't know. But like just the inert environment around you, some types of rock, if they have magic in them, she suspects it might not work right. But again, odds of you finding any of those in your lifetime, she says, would probably be infinitesimally small.
But if you
Okay.
do, let her know.
Pretty much, yeah.
100%. I will 100% try cutting one of these gems that we walk by.
You can cut gems.
Yay! That is also very handy.
Professional jeweler.
Yeah, no shit. They'd pay a fortune for this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anything else to ask or determine about the knife before I get to the one other question you had posed?
I'm trying to think of if
Don't
there's
hurt
more
yourself.
information I need. I know it's a dangerous game.
It's true. I try to avoid taking that risk whenever I can, personally.
Yeah. I'm having one of those things, a headache with pictures.
Thoughts.
An idea.
Oh God.
No, I think that's all I really need to know.
Okay. Then last thing that was brought up, you asked the two of them about the temple that you're headed towards.
Mhm.
What's known about particularly about the group that built it. What's known about them and what happened to them. Um, One of the things they want to discover is specifically which ancient borderline forgotten deity this temple is supposed to be dedicated to. They don't actually know. They're pretty confident it's some deity that has a some sort of say or proximity, if not a direct hand in death, but not necessarily like inherently evil death deities. Like there are plenty in Evard that are good or neutral, uh, because it's just a facet of life.
Mhm.
And they actually have a list of 5 potential deities that Shoko suspects might be the temple with a capital T, which is what Evard calls like the collective presence of the devotees of any god. So like the temple of Bahamut is that the institution across the world. So which capital T temple deity this place observed? Uh, which she can give you what she knows about any of these ancient forgotten gods, or she can not bore you with it. She seems to be used to people not caring.
I'm interested. Uh,
Okay.
uh, like Cole does have a deity that he prays to, so yeah, curious to hear about these ones.
Yeah. Um. So they know about this temple from mostly a couple of references in some really old historical texts that Shoko just happened to realize on accident that there was an absence of information about whatever temple was referred to. And she's not entirely sure it started here underground. She's pretty certain it actually didn't. She doesn't know how it got here if the temple she's thinking this is, if she's right about that, she doesn't know how it got here from somewhere else. But the temple she's
Got too
looking
hipster.
yeah, the temple she is looking for when she originally started looking, she was above ground. She was exploring Evard topside and couldn't find it. Um, And so she just kind of was working at breadcrumbs to piece together anything about this and began to suspect it might have somehow been down here. And so she's spent a few years on this and trying to figure out which of these 5 deities she's narrowed it down to actually claims this temple will then give her a lot more information to work with based on anything she sees here. Because this will probably be the single biggest find in the research of ancient deity worship of any of these figures that anybody studying this stuff has ever found in, over 10,000 years. So she says. She seems to have a pretty high opinion of how magnificent her discovery is going to be, but that doesn't necessarily mean she's wrong about it. But so the list that you get are Therisdune, Shular, Jurgle, Hosk the Great Horn, and Loesch. Which, Nemo, you did see the name Loesch in one of her. You saw all of these names when you were peeking through her books. But Loesch was the only one you had any amount of recognition to, and it was like how do I know that? Like, where do I know that one from? Hold on, I goofed my
It's
screen
like, now I
mildly.
get it. It was a bedtime story my mom told me to try to scare me to bed.
Yes, pretty much. But let me type these names in for you.
Thank you.
Ask the Great Horn and Loesch. There we go. Cool. And she knows a little bit about a couple of them, but most of these are names that have no definitive historical record that she knows about attached to them. So any points she could share any knowledge or relevant information on about any of these people, if she has them, she admits that it's like, this could be very wrong, but this is what I believe and generally what's believed by people who care about this niche subject. So you can ask for some details on them, but I'm not going to continue lore dumping on you guys unless you want me to. This is your chance to walk away. And also, she just
Free
doesn't know a ton.
yourselves.
She admits, like I said, she doesn't know a lot.
This might be something we get to off chapter for or off stream for lore dumping.
Okay, that's fair. I suppose the one thing I can mention about that list was pretty much all of them are at least suspected to be deities associated in any amount of proximity to the concept of death. Yeah. Rad, I think I've let you down minorly with Nemo's information check because you would have recognized the name Therisdune also.
Ooh.
And in the same sense of like, I heard that like 3 times as a kid, and I don't know why. But you would have had enough exposure to be like, oh shit, okay, maybe I'll figure out why someday. But that said, wrapped up, you make it to your temple ruins that you've been looking for. Surprisingly in good shape, as far as you can see. The downside to that is the first thing you see that's in like noteworthy not good shape is the front door. Because the stone archway has collapsed in on itself a little bit. You can see partially, but you would have to either find a way around and look if there's a back way in, or clear the rubble in order to get inside.
Stone, you say?
Yeah, if only there was a tool we had that could cut through stone.
What?
Wow, that
and that you know what to do with it.
yeah, that
If you guys
I've
had just left
tested.
them to burn to death, you would have never found that out, probably.
Yeah, no, there is a there.
Okay, so I want to see. Are you guys able to walk through that now?
I will check eventually.
Woo! Yes.
Yes.
Okay, cool. The last time I tried to use that mechanic with you guys, it may not have even been with you guys. It may have been my Imperial campaign that we don't play on stream. That mechanic on Roll20 did not work.
No, it happened with us too. We slammed our faces against the door.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. So you guys step inside, and this is definitely just like an antechamber. There's not a lot going on here. There's some flora. There's like a small group of crystals. The flora that you see are some mushrooms, some moss, some giant roots creeping through the ceiling. And other than that, there is one door. I forgot to mark the floor. I usually try to do that for complex maps like this. But the door is here.
Okay.
So that yeah. If you guys move around, the lighting should allow you to see
Ah,
eventually. But uh,
Hmm.
the stuff you can see that isn't doors, that's a break in your vision, is because there are holes in the wall there, at least enough to see through.
Wow.
So that is there for a reason. It's not just your Roll20 being silly, I think.
I thought I could see through
Okay.
walls.
I mean, possibly, kinda.
But also,
Oh.
moss, you say? Mushrooms, you say?
yeah. I was gonna
Yeah.
say you said activated a Yeji's code word.
Yeah, where do you want to start?
She's activating gremlin mode at the nearest. Actually, I'm kind of interested in the roots. We're pretty far down. I just want to poke at them a little. So I'll start at the roots.
Okay,
I can't.
there are
I can't turn
so
myself.
many things of prep because I knew you would want to know about every single one of these. This, by the way, this map, this big ass map that you're on for this temple complex, I made 100% of this from scratch. So if you think you
Job.
see a detail in here that may or may not be anything relevant, I put it there either because I thought it looked cool or because it has a reason. So any mushroom, any broken rock on the floor, if you want to ask about it, please do.
We're gonna be here forever.
Yeah.
Don't worry,
I,
I tried to put stuff for all of you somewhere.
Unfortunately, it's
um,
just the Yeji's right in the doorway.
It's
So
fine.
I'll
It's all good.
nick one of the roots, do a sniff, do a poke.
Okay. Um, the first thing about this root that you notice is it is insanely dense and hard. Like the bark almost like it's definitely bark covering it, but it's almost more like stone than like a woody bark cover. This is going to be hard to crack, and you would probably have to crack it to get even like a chip. So,
Don't worry, I have climbing gear. Snail method.
okay,
I will note that he said like stone, not is stone. So my cutter
correct.
will not work.
Correct.
You see, it's a simile, not a metaphor.
uh,
I have a metaphorical knife.
um, so yes, typically for harvesting stuff like this, mechanics and I agree on that is a survival check unless you can really sell me on something else.
Nah. Do I need anything for my chisel work?
No, that will affect the DC.
Okay. So I have a hammer and pythons. I'm gonna tap this tree root like a maple.
Okay.
Not literally. I just want to damage it enough to see what's inside.
Do it.
Oh.
Every time you try to place that python and hit it with the hammer, it just like glances off in a different direction. Like it's pretty hard to pick a spot where this is going to go in and actually sink it in deep enough to break the surface. Like you could potentially spend a bunch of time here and you'd probably eventually get it, but this is an unexpectedly difficult resource to even try and collect a sample from.
Just makes me want it more. Do I carry a dagger? I don't think I do.
I didn't think so.
She can ask Nemo to borrow one of hers.
Oh, she'd more likely dig out one of the chef knives that she has.
Oh my gosh.
Because that
That's
seems like it'll be
true.
easier to, like, settle on. Yeah, just his last thing she'll try before giving up on this route is.
Okay.
Thank goodness.
Because, like, trying to hit a nail into a rock seems very difficult. Putting a knife there and smacking the knife to crack it like a coconut.
Okay.
Sounds like an idea that's gonna end terribly.
I'm gonna lose all my fingers. Oh, it was 1 point better.
Woo!
Technically better.
Improvement! Improvement!
That counts.
ASJ is cursing softly in Dwarven.
So take an inspiration for that. That was unexpected. An unexpected in character choice. I was Thank you for that. Yeah, that would stand out to the two of you. That Yejier just starts cursing in Dwarvish for some reason.
And if anyone knows Dwarvish, it's very formal cursing.
It is. Yeah, like it's
It's not just like, you know, what you'd hear someone kicking their tire because they got a flat. No, it's like
somebody has like
courtier insult.
yeah,
Like I bite my thumb at you.
kind of
Kinda, yeah.
yeah, like kind of a mix of that or 3/4 that,
Like-
1/4 is in like the Dwarvish 201 class and is making do with expressing what they're feeling in like the same way somebody in an intermediate language study formal setting would, where it's like you definitely getting the point across, but it's not as natural. Like it's weird in some way you can't put a finger on.
Let's see.
But as a result of your hitting that knife at Yejier, you smack that knife onto that root in hope of having a different effect, and you do. Your python's still usable after the fact. Your knife bends around this thing. It
That's fine.
it is no longer a functioning knife unless you can get it straightened and like significantly reworked.
You want to know something about that, though?
I know.
I have mending.
Yeah, mending will set it straight. That's fine. But like that's a heavy duty like wilderness camping knife, and this thing just warped it.
Agier's response to that is glaring at the root as she stands and casts mending and saying something, just some very choice words at the root, calling it, let's see. A motherless dung eater.
Hey.
Oof, it's
Watch
devastating.
your profanity.
Yes.
I have a question. You said that like she would be missing a spell slot in the beginning, like entering this temple because of eavesdropping.
You would not.
I would not.
Yeah.
Okay.
You would have had a
Unless
Unless
long
you want
rest
to
over the
cast it
days
right
of travel.
now.
Yeah, unless you want it active coming into this situation.
Yes, but I also have a rebuttal. Nemo can ritual cast.
Oh, yeah.
That is a good rebuttal.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, then you would have had the time, or if nothing else, I don't think that one has a ritual casting time of super duper long.
Might be like 10 minutes.
Yeah, I think it's as low as it is for rituals, which is 10 minutes, maybe 11.
Yeah, to cast it. The duration for the spell is an hour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
While Yejier is looking in here, and some of the others might move on it eventually, but so far everybody seems to have a stick together. We don't know what's in here kind of mindset. But
And you can only describe one thing at a time as well.
Also true. Um, you would probably have enough time to do that if you hadn't done it sooner, while a Yejiye is looking at these initial signs or like forms of natural life. So yes, you can have cast it long enough or recently enough. You can have your hour of ritual cast comprehend
Ooh.
languages,
Ooh.
which is fun because you notice an inscription on the wall.
Oh,
It's pretty faded. It didn't actually look like meaningful text. It just kind of looked like markings. You're not sure what language this is actually in. I don't think the spell tells you that.
no, just translate for her.
Uh, but but it's straight up fucking graffiti.
Nice.
I'm remembering before I say it. I'm going to copy paste it into chat. Uh, but the text you read is ZZ's band killed 4 trolls here. Which, if that's not just graffiti in the temple foyer, like, weird flex, but okay.
Yeah, I'm just like, oh, great. I hope there's not any more.
Ayezie, I assume you would want to attempt with the other things too. I will give
Yeah,
you.
I'll do some speed rolling.
Okay. Um, there are 2 different kinds of mushrooms. There's a crystal if you wanted to attempt collecting a sample of that. Not saying that it will necessarily be relevant or like a thing you could benefit from. I'm not promising that, but it is a noteworthy enough you could try. Or there's moss. 2 mushrooms, crystal, moss.
Yeji would just ask Cole to cut off a chunk of the crystal. Like maybe a fist-sized chunk. I'm assuming
Same.
crystal is rock here.
Yeah, he is able to try that.
Yes.
Can I also have a small piece?
I guess.
Okay,
You're the one
Cole.
with the tool.
There's a joke in there somewhere. Um, Cole, make a survival check for me, but make it with advantage because you are still attempting to essentially collect or forage a sample of something.
And it is trying to kill you.
Well,
So
particularly
what?
it's being able to extract an effective sample for a Yejiye to be able to study, and if anything she finds is useful to her in any of her stuff, like a way that's
Now,
not just researchable but usable.
if I may rebuttal,
Mm-hmm.
extracting a sample that requires some delicate fingers, would it not?
It
So,
sure
would sleight of hand
it would
be acceptable?
absolutely yes it would.
What? Thank you, Your Honor.
Careful, SpongeBob. Careful, SpongeBob.
Careful, SpongeBob! Careful, SpongeBob! Woo!
Hey!
All right. Well, 150 bonus experience to Cole
Woo!
for a natural 20 with that advantage. Yeah, you actually are able to extract. Uh, good gracious. All right. Ayejiye,
Yes.
you are able to extract 13 usable samples.
Nice.
Excellent.
I have stuff about things that you can collect samples from here if they can be used in any way or studied in any way. A sample is a catch-all term for whatever is effective for that resource. So it might not be the same as, a sample of the moss might be at different proportions or whatever, but to keep it simple, that's too much even for me. A sample. Um, and eventually, I'll probably, depending on what they are, have to worry about carry weight of all the samples you haul around if you're carrying them not in a bag of holding. But for
That's my
now,
secret cap.
That's very nice. I have tentative names for some of these things because some of these, like this, it doesn't matter what you roll, you have no context in which to know what this is or what it is called. Um, in some cases, here or later on outside of this temple and other parts of the campaign, you might find things that are undescribed scientifically. Nobody has found them and researched them before. They have no names. I will give you working names, and if you ever want to change them, you can. I will let you know what those things are.
They're all named a Yejier.
Okay, for now, in your inventory, I have a name for this thing. You have collected 13 samples of a mineral crystal called basilisk hair.
I hate that, thanks.
You're welcome, but you're going to remember it. And as far as you know, nobody has described anything quite like this mineral, so you can change the name of it.
I'll have to, because I can't spell basilisk.
Fair.
I mean, I did with, spell check, but
Well, here's the
a
fun thing.
Yejier.
You get to name it. You can spell it however you want.
It's true. A Yejier trying to write a letter to her contacts. Basilic hair.
Fair enough. And then give me. I'll go into the specifics of that with you later because you won't be able to look into it now.
Yeah, she's not examining anything right now. She is just getting samples to look at once we are out of here.
Okay, go ahead and give me one more survival check for the other, like, easier to collect things in this room.
The 2 mushrooms and a moss.
Yeah.
Because there's 3 things writing on it, I'm just gonna go ahead and use that inspiration immediately.
Okay, I'm gonna show chat our silly, goofy, upside-down dog.
Excellent.
She do silly, big snoozes. She likes to thrash around like that and roll around. We call it her dumbass gator mode.
She's just so cute. She got so
That's how
much
they-
neck.
That's how they get you.
16. The rolls are getting better.
Yay.
Okay, so let me confer a thing on my list of homebrew forageables.
I, the player, have moss trauma, thank you, from the Imperial campaign.
You do.
Oh,
It does not. I, the player, do. If this moss starts growing at an obscene rate.
TLDR, all you need to know is the party druid used speak with plants on a weird, like, large blanket of moss that took up, like, a whole clearing. Used speak with plants, and the only response the druid got back from this moss was, consume.
oh no.
And it became a thing for a little while. There were
It was,
developments.
like in every crevice.
Yeah.
It tried to kill me.
They found skeletons underneath that moss.
Weird.
Oh fuck.
Yeah, wild. Okay, yeah. So with your 16, you effectively collect. Oh.
I don't like it when the DM makes that noise.
like how big are we talking? Sorry, I got a whisper message from Nemo. Nemo, how big are we talking?
Uh. Are we talking about like surface area or
just like general? Are we talking like is something fairly small or like walk-in sized? Something you could carry in one hand, you would need 2 hands, you would need a second person?
like a jar size?
Oh, okay. Then just one.
Okay.
One sample.
Okay.
Roughly the size of a pomelo.
Those are
Okay.
pretty good.
So that +3 on that applies to each D10 individually. So a Yajier, you end up getting, let's see, that's the first one would be 7 samples of that very colorful mushroom, which is bioluminescent, by the way, along the edges of the flat shelves of these mushroom clusters. Very beautiful, vibrant, multicolored bioluminescent. The other kind of gray-blue one is a soft, kind of glowing blue on the edges. Um, but so that is 7 samples of onyx cap mushroom, onyx like the stone.
Ooh.
And then that
Not like the
is,
Pokemon.
I mean, could be also, they're spelled the same. 10 samples of silver shade fungus. And then what's the last one? What was that last result? Back to my screen. 6. Uh, Yejiye, you know from foraging moss and trying to like learn about it, you usually have to take more per sample. So even though it's like growing up the wall in a sheet kind of like this, you need to take decently sized chunks of like sheet to be able to work with it. So what you estimate to be an acceptable sample size is like you have to cut it and like roll your samples of this stuff.
Like sod.
Kind of, yes. But like it compresses down after that, but it's more than a person would expect if you say, you know, a testing sample of moss. But you get 6 samples of Merchant's Bane moss.
Oh.
Does it just look like moss?
Um, so it looks like moss, but it's not just green. It also has a little, it's like 60-40 green and like a bright saturated purple.
Beridian moss.
Kinda.
And thankfully, Yajier knows that most moss is easy to grow if she wants more of this.
True. Okay. But that's it for this room.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Plants.
All right. I'll keep my
I don't have to
NPCs in
roll
a group.
for the moss, do I?
Yes, actually, unless you were asking a Yejier to collect or donate one for you.
She
Otherwise,
will go give, I guess, she some puppy eyes.
Once again, because I just said that moss is usually pretty easy to grow, I think a Yajier can spare a sample.
Yes. Okay.
Which is still like freaking huge, but like an A4 sheet of paper.
Oh, dang.
yeah.
And he was just like, yeah, just label it. Put my name on it.
Wow, this certainly is a room in here.
Yeah. As that goes on, you guys progress your searching and your ritual castings to progress to the next room, and the next room is definitely a temple. This is the main hall, like the religious operations room where huge ceremonies take place. And for how old Shoko has implied this place is, it is immaculately clean in this room.
Oh.
Like the floor is a black with some white and gold colored, but not actually gold metal veining marble. And the walls are also a similar sort of black marble. And they're not as crumbly. In fact, they're borderline not crumbly at all, like the foyer you just exited was. There's benches everywhere. The torches on the walls are lit, and they glow with a very pink-purple flame. And at the far end, there's this circular dais, above which is a huge, like 3-story tall statue of presumably whatever deity this place is devoted to. It's got horns. It's got a helmet. It looks decently, but not definitively masculine, and very akin to some like fiendish features. And it has in one hand an axe, and in the other hand an old school farming sickle. And this thing is pristine. And on top
Soviet national anthem plays.
not quite. That's a hammer and a sickle. It's not that kind of axe. It doesn't have a hammer on the back. But in the front center of this dais is another like it's another like polished black stone, but it's not the same sort of marble that the floor is made out of. It's its own type of very fancy polished nice stone. But it's an altar. And on top of that altar is a metal case that looks like a really weird coffin. Really weird and really fancy. It's vaguely mostly cylindrical for the body and then has a tapering space for a head. It looks like it opens somehow, and the only other thing on there with it is a canopic jar, uh, which I'm not sure any of you would have any reason to know that that's what they're called, but you would hear Shoko call it that, so you guys have context. For what if you don't know what a canopic jar is as a player or as chat, um, unless I am mistaken, and I tried to look this up and make sure I wasn't, a canopic jar is the jar that would accompany mummies in ancient
Oh,
Egypt
that's where the organs are.
that contains like the preserved organs. So it's that type of container. It's not festooned or decorated in any way that implies like a dedication to a deity. Like a lot of Egyptian canopic jars had like the head of a deity incorporated as like the lid of the vessel. This has nothing like that. Jesus Christ, Pez. They're not travel rations, Pez. I don't care how well dried
They're
and
just
preserved they
jerky.
are. Um,
They're
Hey,
just jerky.
if they were good enough for the Victorians, they're good enough for us.
Wait, what?
Yeah,
They
the
ate mummies,
Victorians
don't
ate
worry about
mummies.
it. They also made a really specific pigment with them.
they did. Yeah, the
Wasn't it like a
Victorians
brown or something
got
like
up to
that?
stuff.
Yeah, it was just like mummy brown, something
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that.
Okay, I remember that part.
Yeah. But so like who or whatever this container is, you don't know if it's full or not as you step into this room.
We
But
don't know if it's occupied.
it's set there. It would strike you as being very deliberate, like almost it's there for a ceremony or a ritual that just like hasn't happened yet, and whoever was prepping is just in a different room. Like it doesn't feel like it's forgotten in this place. If anything, this is like for at least a main temple ceremony hall like this, that very well, as far as any of you could know or surmise without a check, this might be the seat of honor for this whole fucking building that this dead person is at. You don't know. The only other noteworthy things about the room, let me make sure I've described all the noteworthy things about the room because I have a list for each room. Um, okay, that has all been mentioned. The only other things worth mentioning are there are two doors attached to this room that are separate from the doors you came in through. And they're both in the back. So there is a door around and to the right of the dais and the giant statue. And then this is a closed door. This, as you guys move through the space, you realize was a closed door at some point. You can see like the hinges still in the door frame, but there's no door attached.
Oh.
But so
Question:
it's just an open hallway that you could progress through. Yes.
wooden doors?
Yes.
Oh, weird. That's all.
Cole's gonna examine the pretty pink fire.
Sure. And any interaction other than just staring at it like a moth?
I'll just kind of run his hands through it, just see if it's hot. See if it's what kind of magic it is, if he can tell. I'm
Oh,
guessing that'd be Arcana.
It would be Arcana, probably, yes. And it is hot. It is very hot.
Wow.
You actually have to roll chemistry for this one.
Yeah.
Oh,
um,
oh, I get advantage for that. Or is that player knowledge?
no, I forgot to say it, but yes, you would have advantage on that roll.
Oh, cool. So I get, I'll just roll again. That's even worse. Damn it.
Um, you've never really seen or heard of any fires like this that are this color, but you have heard of spells that extend or essentially indefinitely extend the life of a fire. Like there are some higher level spells or like mid level spells, but more powerful than what most of you guys can access at level 3.
Mhm.
But you would know they exist, where you can create light or fire attached to certain things, usually light, but you've heard there might be ways to do it with fire, where you could attach that to something, and until that fire is snuffed out forcefully, usually by arcane means, that fire just burns borderline forever. And
So,
this
so
seems
I
to
have.
be that type. You don't see fuel in there. It is an
Yep.
empty, like just like an empty tray, and that fire is burning nothing.
Yeah, so Cole's gonna try control flames to see if he's able to expand it and then snuff it out.
Okay. Make another Arcana check for me with advantage.
All right. I'll click the advantage button this time.
For no reason.
Ooh, yes.
You feel some sort of weird resistance in your attempt to connect your will of your magic into the magic of this fire. You get over it. Like it's not like a thing that actively fights you and you have to push through, but it's not as easy as you would have expected it to be. But it does snuff out when you tell it to.
Hmm.
Just the one. It's not like a chain reaction for all of them around the room in case anybody was afraid of that. That is not a thing.
That's good.
Uh, Meanwhile, Varkon is just taking in the sights, wandering up the room, and Shoko is looking around, flying around, all with her face up and down from the pages of her notebook. Like she's flying up, taking notes about the statue. Sorry, that was just supposed to be what the NPCs are doing. Cole, if you have other experiments with the fire, by all means.
No, that was all I wanted with the fire. And
Okay.
magic fire, that's neat. It really wanted to be in place, so that's probably a strong spell. Just gonna take a cursory glance. I ain't touching anything on this altar, but I am examining that and just does it look like are there any holes in this
uh,
metal sarcophagus to see if there is a body inside?
you don't see anything super obvious. You could investigate if you would like.
Oh, I'll try investigating. I am curious. Eh.
You don't find any. You find the the hinges of the the main body of the case where it opens up, and you would put a body in or out through, but they're latched closed.
Mhm.
But otherwise, you don't actually find any holes or anything in this. This is a solid metal. Uh, it's not a coffin, but I don't know what else to call it. Body case, and it's very nice. This is an important person not just by placement, but this would be an expensive thing nowadays to try and convince somebody to bury you in.
Mhm. Yeah. After examining that, Cole's gonna look up at the face of the statue and yeah, we're not gonna mess with this. I'm not, at least. And he's just gonna kind of eye this open corridor.
Can she go through? Is it open?
It should be. As you test that back door behind the statue, I don't know.
Nemo, you've killed us all.
I don't know if roll 20 is going to be dumb, but that door is unlocked for Nemo. You can walk right through it.
Oh.
But it's locked for everyone else.
Yeah, only Nemo.
Bye, Nemo.
She actually had to scan her fingerprint.
There
Bye.
was a keypad and everything.
Yeah.
A fob. Like Nemo thought about going through. She's like, wait, my golden rule. I am not going to be the first. I will not be the last. Would somebody like to go with me in this room?
The SGA was gonna follow.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, if that's where we're checking first.
Ron can also
Nemo's
take
here.
point if you would like.
I would love that. Thank you, Ron.
Yeah,
Uh,
if the gang's going, Cole also likes to go first. In the temple.
and
Because he is searching for things.
fair.
Oh my.
In this room, you find 6 identical stone altars, with the exception being they're not a full, like, top solid stone altar down to the ground. These are more like very nice, distinguished holding slabs that are attached to the wall and have a single pillar underneath instead of all being one solid chunk. So they're not quite as distinguished and fancy as the one out front, but they're still really
A
nice, and
larder.
they're considerably and noticeably nice and clean, like the ones in there, despite the fact that the walls in this room have some notable broken spots. Besides these 6 identical slabs that also have the body cases and the canopic jars on them, arranged slightly differently than the one out front. But besides that and the holes in the wall that you guys should be able to see through with your tokens, there's some more of those giant-ass roots coming through one of the broken spots. And in between some of those roots on the floor, there's a small cluster of like light blue crystals. But other than that, there's not really anything in this room.
Before
Can
he's
Nemo
even
see this?
asked, Cole's gonna go and collect the crystals.
Thank you, Cole.
Okay, make your, you used sleight of hand last time, so go ahead and make your sleight of hand again.
Yep. Was that with advantage or just standard?
Just standard. But you're proficient with a knife, I do believe, so you get your proficiency bonus.
Yes, I am.
All right, I had a different screen pulled up. What did we get? Oh, yeah, okay, cool.
Yes, there are
Oh
mushrooms
god,
over
I
here.
cannot type to save my life.
He's gonna have
Really?
such full pockets.
You're gonna fill up your bags of holding before you've ever made it past the first 4
I have a
rooms of
second
this
one.
place. Oh shit, you right. Just put
Don't
when
put
I
when
them
won't
one's
together.
forget that.
when
Don't.
one gets full, just stuff it in the other to save your space.
Yeah.
Oh!
Obliterate this historic, like disproportionately important historic find that is this temple. Okay, where am I? What am I looking for? That's what I'm looking for. What was the number on that, Cole?
18.
18. Okay. That will do. The crystals growing in this cluster are significantly smaller than the ones in the last one. So you only end up with 4 usable samples. But yes, a Yejiye, you get an astral tear is the working name for this. Tear like boohoo, not like top tier. Which is funny.
What if it's a
which
top boohoo?
maybe that's just a weird and confusing night for everybody involved. But in case you're curious, I had to type it in here with the pronunciation because it's tear, T-E-A-R, and I needed to remember that it was tear and not tear. Because then it
Yeah.
sounds like it's, omen of the apocalypse with an astral tear.
That's a Pokemon move.
Oh, is it?
Probably. I don't know.
It's sure as hell sounds
I
like one.
believe it.
But yes, you do notice there are caverns and like some tunnels and pathways beyond just this room. And some of that, it's kind of hard to tell with the shadows as far as I can see them, but some of those are like pathways that continue out of your sight. So in theory, if you had not been able to get through the front door so easily, there may have been a way to get around and come in here or somewhere else like this in the temple.
The DM giving us options.
What? Multiple fail states accounted for? Since when?
Nah, the campaign ends here because we can't open a door.
Yeah, we bang our head on the door 3 times and we leave.
That sounds right.
We literally tried everything, man, and like we're out of ideas.
Hey Pez, do you remember the keyboard shortcut from that TikTok you showed me for rotating a token?
Is it holding
Yes,
Alt
It,
or holding? Just holding something.
it was. Pez showed me a TikTok like
Ooh.
2 days ago that was 5 really useful and easy Roll20 features that you probably don't know are there. And they were things like, oh,
Hold E and mouse wheel.
it's real easy to rotate your token, as a matter of fact. Look at that. Look at that. And there were a few
Add
others.
Alt.
Right, run, baby, right, run.
Add Alt to make it smaller rotations.
Yeah.
And that was oh look at
E
that.
Alt.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, fine details.
You can
This
turn
is
so
2025.
slowly. Dun 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 dun.
So what's down this hall?
They're
Oh.
just dancing now.
Oh.
Ron peeks up and looks around and just goes, "It's another room, I guess."
90-degree corner.
Oh, but there's mushrooms over here.
Yeah.
There's the mushrooms.
Nemo
She
was
doesn't
trying to
even
point it
notice.
out like a pointer.
I say she noticed that Cole and Ron have left her.
Do you want the
Ah.
mushrooms?
We circle back up.
There's a bear poop in the woods.
Fair. Okay. Make your.
Oh, I can't get
check.
to them. Wait,
Oh.
that's not. Oh, I can just see them.
No. That's a Roll20 settings thing. You can get to them and collect them and come back.
Okay. It's like, no.
Reach,
I'm
Yazzie!
trapped here.
Reach with your long, freakishly long arms! I believe in you!
I mean, they are within reach of me.
So. Oh, fuck. You right. They are, aren't they? God damn it.
Stick my little arm
God,
through there and just.
Yeah, you wanna
Oh.
know why she has 10-foot a 10-foot reach in melee? It's because she's half bugbear, and bugbears get that.
Nice.
In fairness, genetically, she's probably only like a quarter bugbear.
Yeah.
But
the
way
way
it manifests.
the way I do mixed species homebrews is
Nice.
the player has a better knowledge and understanding of genetics than I, the DM, so I defer to her judgment. Okay, so
Purple mushrooms?
yes, the purple mushrooms you notice when you get close are probably the same species. There's minor variations, but they're like pitch black around the edge of the cap and the gills, and I know for a mushroom it's not a stem, but I don't remember, so it's a stem tonight. But the top of the cap is that like pink purple, and it moves like it lazily lava lamps bioluminescent shades of pink and purple as it just sits there. And it was doing that when you first laid eyes on it. It does it when you last lay eyes on it. So they're probably the same species. Ayejiye, you have done enough foraging to recognize lookalikes.
You could have stopped there, Ulf. You really could
have. But you see there's one of these mushrooms looks like the one you found previously. But you have enough experience at this sort of thing that you notice what you collected samples from in the first room was a shelf mushroom. It didn't grow out of a stem. It grew horizontally out of like the wall, and the stuff in and stuck to the wall in clusters. This one, visually, color-wise, pattern-wise, like a bioluminescent power, like illumination factor of the light-wise, looks really, really similar, but it's one of them, and it's growing out of a mushroom stem and vertically and not horizontally out of a cluster. So this is a look-alike. One of them is probably more dangerous than the other if both of them are dangerous, because a lot of
So it's
mushroom
a
lookalikes
look-alike
do that way. Of
to
the
the
onyx
onyx
cap.
cap.
Yes. And I will give you the working name for this one after you've had a chance to research it. It's kind of hard to see in here, but there is one like plain ass brown chanterelle looking thing also.
I mean, I'm not against taking it. Good soup.
Uh, Assessing it, you do realize it's not one you know. Um,
Possibly deadly soup.
Possibly deadly soup.
Delectable tea or deadly poison?
Hmm.
Mushroom tea sounds absolutely rank.
It's
Okay.
broth.
Yeah, but I'm imagining it unseasoned.
So the regular brown one, um, you you get over to it to interact with it, collect samples from it, and you realize it is a cluster, like kind of a multi-stem cluster that just has a lot of really smaller versions of itself popping up around the base. So you're able to get a surprising amount of samples just from those little ones. But you end up getting 8 of the brown mushroom in samples. You get 10 samples out of the. I have a name for them. I have a name for all of these, but some of them are classified because they're how I remember what they do. The pink and purple and black one working title is Void Cap. You get 10 samples of Void Cap.
Help me.
Hoban is helping with the collections.
I have a cattail in my mouth. Trying to keep him off the mic.
Mother, I assist. I insist I assist.
You cannot refuse this service.
Yeah, right. I love the energy of that phrase. You cannot refuse this service.
No.
And then you
Oben says I get 43 of them.
incorrect. Overruled. Objection.
He also said ew, so it's just 43 ew. Go ahead, sorry.
And then you also get 5 samples of the look-alike, the iron cap look-alike.
Oh.
Onyx cap?
Or onyx cap, yes, sorry. Well, I don't even know what I misspoke there and called it, but yes,
Hey,
onyx
baby
cap.
boy.
Okay, while you're doing that though, Cole and Ron, you guys go into a different room.
Yeah, we're exploring.
Yeah, and Ayejie and Nemo, whenever you guys catch up, you'll find these same things. So, the space that you find yourself in looks really like borderline official. Like it would be weird a little bit. The main things in here that you see are the fact that there's wooden furniture that is in surprisingly okay shape. In this hallway off to the side, I'll motion with Ron. Off to Ron's right, you can see the main ceremony hall that you were in before. This was where those empty door hinges were. They just come into here.
Mm-hmm.
The desk in here still has a bunch of stuff on it, like it was in use. But also it's clean. There's cobwebs on some parts of the room, but not like the desk or anything. But it still very much kind of looks like somebody might be back any second to use this. Like, there's a scale with a full set of weights. There's books, like an ink well that is long dried out, but you can see from the lines left it was pretty full of ink when that happened. There's a quill still sitting in it. There's a jar on the front of the desk, and the desk is a couple feet tall. So as Ron kind of pokes back through here and does a check, Cole, you're standing on the other side. You realize this is probably some kind of like a reception desk or like a clerk station. Because if you were to be sitting at that desk and Ron walked through the ceremony hall and walked in this door,
Mm-hmm.
the desk is perfectly suited to like house everything you might need to interact while still accessing your ledgers and having reasonable sight with Ron.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but there is just like a jar or a vessel on top next to the scales that just has a little slot in the top for dropping coins in. Um,
Hmm.
and then let's see, am I missing anything else that you would notice? There's an abacus up there. There's an unlit candle. On one of there's another desk kind of back behind it. Back here.
This one? Yeah.
Yeah. Um, that just has a big roll of vellum at the top. Like it, it was prepped for somebody to write or draw on, but it just hadn't been used. But it's on like a roll. So this was somebody who like, if you were working at the station, you did a lot of writing or drawing.
Mm-hmm.
And the vellum for however old this place is also in weirdly okay shape. Like it's kind of moldy, like a couple mold spots in a handful of places that you can see just as it's rolled up, but like it should be rotted away.
Yeah. An age and a half or 3, it shouldn't be here anymore.
Yes. The books, there is a bookshelf right down here in the bottom left of the room. Uh, it has a few books in it, not a ton. All of my bookcase assets had books in them, so it's not quite that full. But there's also opposite it, there is a big vase or an urn. It has a cap on the top. It's about 4 feet tall, but it does have spider webs around it. Not sure if that's an issue for Cole or not.
Nah.
I don't know. I've seen enough point and click hidden object games to know you need either a feather duster or a broken broom.
Fair enough.
Or a spell called Firebolt.
Fair.
Um. Yeah. So Cole's just, but before other people, like our new guests, get here, he's trying to see if he can find the item quick and hide it.
Okay.
Um. So like, he's gonna glance into this room, see what he sees as well.
Okay. So in this room, there are a few things of note. One, the floor. It's fancied up like the main ceremonial hall because this hall and the room that had the 6 bodies in it in the hallway, they were like well cut, but nothing super special flagstones that seem to decay or like match the level of decay you would expect. The floor in this room is another one that is like weirdly not bothered by time and is really nice, is more intricate even because it's like these mosaics and decorations. Again, I chose that floor because it is accurate. Uh, and so that would be the first thing that jumps out at you. The second thing would be it's kind of hard to see in here, but here in the middle of the room, this is like a 5 foot by 5 foot reliquary that like any religious artifacts or items of importance for ceremonies, rituals, anything else like that. This looks like the kind of place where they'd keep those when they're not being used. Someplace probably sacred or possibly magically protected. But it looks like there's been a collapse of the roof in this room and a big chunk of a pillar that was connected to the ceiling fell down and smashed the top of this reliquary in. You can see inside, and there's nothing really in there. Or if there was, it's been crushed by whatever couple pieces of rubble are in there. But there's not as much as you would think. It looks like it mostly smashed the top of the reliquary, and then like most of the rubble rolled off.
Yeah.
But that said, it looks like it's a very impressive like piece of artistry for whoever created the thing, what's left of it. I'm sure a couple thousand years ago they were probably very well esteemed as a mason of some kind. Other things in this room. Oh, in that same spot, that broken lid of the reliquary, there are cobwebs. Just make of that information what you will. Just wanted to point that out. Um, there is also a busted up wooden chest in the very back of the room that was also kind of hit by that collapsing pillar. That would be right here. It's also underneath some of those same mushrooms growing out of the wall that a Yegier collected first. A Yegier, if you do poke your head in here, you would see there are two different clusters of the onyx cap growing out of the walls in this room. But Cole, you'd have to do some sifting and sorting to see if there's really anything of note in the remains of that chest over there. Because the chest was just wood, and it seems to have been not fully rotted away like it should be, but it was also really damaged. So it's not certain if the wood is like partially aging or not. But it takes some work to see if there's still anything useful in it.
Gotcha.
The other things of note, in the very back here, there is a large black marble bookcase that's made out of the same material as the floor in the ceremonial hall. And I'm sure you would probably notice this as one of the first things in the room. I guess there are two of those black marble bookshelves. Because there's the one here, and then you're actually standing next to one between these two pillars. But opposite that, and I think you guys will understand why I maybe waited to describe this thing last, although it's one of the first eye-catching things in the room, there's a really, really nice round table that's, again, really clean. It has, like, most of the top looks like it's actual solid gold, and it is finely polished and preserves. A Yegier, on top of it is an egg.
Oh no.
Said egg is very noticeably cracked on one side. It's the shell isn't like
Bless you.
compromised, it's not
Thank you.
chipped off, but there is a pretty prominent crack in this egg.
Ayeshiei will not touch it, but she'll go over and start looking at it while Cole looks around the room. I'm gonna be like standing on top of it. Don't mind that.
Yeah. So the other main thing about this egg that gets noticed is on the bottom there's like a crisscross, an X, a hatch, whatever you want to call it, of like almost bone-like ridges that are really similar in color and like at least visually like structural composition of the eggshell, but like they go let's see. I have these things described better on my screen. I should read it. But they're like ridges that crisscross in the very center of the bottom and make a perfectly symmetrical X, where each end of the lines of this X go up the sides, roughly about halfway up the whole shell. And the whole shell is, God, what is that? Like about 18 inches from top to bottom standing vertically, and it stands on those bone-like ridges without any sort of pedestal or anything underneath it. So it's probably not just eggshell.
I will not lie, I cannot imagine this in my head.
That's fair. It's
Ulf.
decently big egg.
Quick question.
Yes.
On the bookshelves, are those covered in cobwebs?
Yes.
Okay.
Spiders like to read.
Yeah, but
Mhm.
he's gonna kind of put his hand between a Yvardsaga and the pedestal. So clearly there's some magic going on in this temple. But this is the only thing in the room that's not covered in cobwebs. Make note of that before touching.
Yvardsaga was not going to touch it, but she'll give Cole a vague nod. The egg is more interesting than Cole at this moment.
She might have heard me.
The grunt may have been an acknowledgement. She also may have just bumped her toe. Yeah. Any other interactions with objects in this room? Questions or
Just
physical interactions. Both are allowed.
I just
anything
thought
of note on the bookshelf here in the middle of the room?
They're all bound books. There's not a scroll in this room.
Oh.
So there's money inherently in that alone, and they are pretty well preserved. They're kind of dusty-ish, but not as dusty as a multi-thousand-year-old temple book should be still on the shelf. But they've probably not been very dusty or unkempt for most of their whatever this weird abandoned stasis emptiness is.
Mm-hmm.
But they're all in a language you don't understand, and you.
Oh yeah.
Uh,
Cole's gonna holler out, "Shoko, I think I found what you're dreaming of."
Oh.
You are going to get a little. Where the hell is?
In the main hall.
where the hell did Shoko go?
No, I. Weirdly enough, even though she's an NPC, apparently when I am in the view mode that chat sees, Ron is the perspective token, not any other NPC, because Ron could not see her, therefore I could not see her until Ron could.
Oh.
Well, that's because Ron is the main character.
True.
Yes.
Yvardsaga is all about Ron. What were we saying? You
He's been in
called
2
her
campaigns, which is more campaigns than any other character has been in so far.
untrue.
Mm-hmm.
Untrue indeed. You had elves. Elves were in the Imperial campaign. At least 3 of them were the
That's
same.
true. You're
I was gonna
right.
say, Pez, you should be the expert, and you're lying to us.
I mean, would I really be an expert in America if I weren't?
Oof. Too real. I came here to escape reality. How dare
Um, hearing that, Shoko comes in and is alight, just so stoked, and she is looking over everything there and just babbling on to herself as she's writing in her notebook, furiously flapping. Like, her feet have not touched the ground since you guys left the foyer.
Babbling in common or in
No, it's absolutely
Owlin
an
speak?
Owlin.
Okay, I just want to make
She is
sure. I
too
assumed as
excited.
much, but I mean, the Yvardsaga was cursing in Dwarvish earlier, so.
Nemo, you can make sense of both the books and the Owlin. You wouldn't necessarily know what's what. Um, Except that you can see that whatever the language the graffiti in the main room was, is also the language most of these books are written in. I say most, like 90% of the books in this room, even on the other shelf. And they are mostly accounts. Like, there's some religious texts. Most of the things here are like basic fundamentals of magic, some of which, flipping through any pages that you might, are really outdated and inaccurate anymore, according to modern day studies and understanding of the arcane.
Hmm.
Or they're like the records of the scribes in the room you had to walk through to get here. They're like financial ledgers, or like records of letters sent in an official capacity on behalf of the temple.
Oh, well, could she peruse through those and look for any mention of the item that they're looking for?
Sure, make an investigation check for that.
Ooh, okay.
While she's doing that, Cole is going to come back and investigate, dig through this box.
What are you doing?
Okay, make an investigate for me, Cole, when you can, if you have not already.
Show
Nemo.
off.
Nice. Cole, looking through that chest, and I'll also equate this to the reliquary, poking around in there. Between the two, because eventually with a roll like that, even while you're just studying this, you would notice some of the faint lights going around. Because Varcon needs light to see. He is the only one of you that does not have dark vision. So as he's following through the hallways, he has a torch. And at one point, as he's passing through like the scribe's room, connected to this one, something inside the broken reliquary catches your eye glinting on the floor, and you notice that between the inside that broken container and this wooden chest, there's a lot of hack silver in here. That's most of what was here. The hack silver, you find what equates to 483 silver pieces worth of hack silver. So that's not an insignificant amount. That's for the average, even like decent merchant, that's more than they probably make in a year. 48 gold pieces. But in addition to that, you also find a few gemstones. You find an eye agate. I don't know how well. I don't know how well Possum, you as a player or a character, know your stones. Rad, I know you know stones. Pez, I know you know stones. But
I pretend to.
an eye agate, for those who don't know, would be the most distinctive of the gemstones you find here. And these are in the remnants of the wooden chest, intermixed with the silver. It's kind of all over the place. Some of it's even just like not in either container, but you find it in the room. But an eye agate is a paler stone that has like concentric ringed circular formations of a different color that look like they're vaguely kind of look like there are eyeballs embedded in this. And it's got a lot of those. You find that it is worth 10 gold pieces, so it's a decent size, fits comfortably in the palm of your hand, and has some heft to it. You find a small nugget of quartz that's worth 5 gold pieces, and you find a bloodstone. This is a polished, like dome-shaped chunk of bloodstone, which uh, is like red and black with a lot of very subtle striations in uh, like the layering of the stone that makes it look like almost like it was liquid that then just stopped and got preserved. But that one is worth 15 gold pieces, all said and done. And I say that you guys probably wouldn't know that off the top of your head, except maybe Nemo, but that's for your inventory to know what it's worth when you go to trade.
Yep.
Um,
Ayeshe, can I borrow your bag?
She'll hold it open.
I kind of need it to shovel things in here.
Oh,
And
you're gonna get crud in my bag.
he's gonna like hold up a handful of like the hack silver. This is kind of everywhere.
She'll give him the empty one.
I realize I apologize to players and to anybody watching this live or as a VOD. I don't know if any of you except I know Possum for sure knows what hack silver is. Did, um, sorry, Rad or
Silver that you
Fez.
cough up, right?
Sure.
I knew it.
Sorry if that was. I didn't mean to just treat that like that was a phrase everybody knew. Um, if you did not know, hack silver is like essentially any form of like silver that could be like either hacked off and melted down to be used as either a form of currency in and of itself, or like maybe used to remake into an actual silver coin. It's kind of just like scraps and odds and ends that wouldn't be seen at face value as a monetary object in the modern day, but the silver that it's made from itself is worth that amount. So like 483 gold or silver pieces worth of hack silver is a lot of like loose jewelry and like maybe small nuggets of silver that are a fairly consistent size and weight, like they were used as a currency alternate for coins. You don't see a lot of hack silver in modern Evard these days. Most places have enough access to a mint and silver, even if it's from trading with places that produce that. There's not a lot of need for it anymore. Um, but Shoko will actually pause and point out that's a good haul. In my experience, many ruins have very little, but some. This was a very wealthy place. Goes back to her own bumbling and rambling. Which,
Mm-hmm.
Nemo, sorry, I did not forget about you. You don't find anything in particular relating to some like mysterious case or artifact or display. The only things you see about displays are related to certain basic rituals that are like instructions for acolytes on how to arrange stuff on the altar. You do find a couple mentions of some, they're probably like lesser artifacts, and you get the sense that they were used regularly. The thing you were sent here to find would probably not qualify there. Just the fact that you've been sent to all this trouble seems like it's probably not the sort of thing they pulled out every other day.
Yeah.
Probably, since you don't know what you're looking for. Excuse me. Um, but you do catch the name. You realize Shoko can't actually read this language that all this stuff's written in. She seems familiar with it, and you hear her refer to it as Terran. Um, and I don't know if you as a player recognize that. You as Nemo should have virtually no reason to know anything about that without a check, but you can make a check if you want. Um, the lettering for the brief bits you get to see it before the magic shifts it to your comprehension looks mildly kind of like like the letters used for dwarvish and orcish, gnomish. Giant uses the same ones. Um, it looks vaguely similar, but definitely different. And in there, sorry, I kept get getting distracted about what I was actually trying to tell you. You find the name of the deity that this temple is associated with. It's in there plenty. There are many praise bees too, as all of this goes along. Um, this is a temple to Jurgal, which is. Let me get on the right screen so I can type that to you. That's not a name any of you would inherently know off the top of your head. Shoko can't seem to realize that yet. Like she's trying to figure it out, making her notes, flipping through some of these old books with her same frantic energy, but an appropriate level of like reverence and control to not destroy this find or its contents. But she seems to still be like trying to piece together the stuff that you can just literally read plain as day. So I don't know if you would tell her that, but you learn a lot about this place pretty quickly just flipping through some of this stuff.
Hmm.
This was a place where people brought their dead to be uh, taken care of appropriately in ancient days, according to whatever customs they had at the time, that could be allotted for the poorest of the poor, all the way up to the most honored in the eyes of this deity, whatever those standards were. All of them could be brought here and like handled and sent to the afterlife in comfort and respect and honor sent to this god of death. Jurgle is referenced a few times as with like kind of the flowery titles given to deities even in modern Evard sometimes like the Lady of the Morning. I don't know off the top of my head what they would be for Jurgle, but they're there and make it plain Jurgle was a deity of death. Seeming to be a non-malicious one, but this is a little early to tell that definitively. But it seems like people were comfortable bringing their dead here, and not necessarily like zealots about it. There were some people who worked here helping with like cleaning and preparing the dead for ceremony that like
Hmm.
weren't clerics and priests at the temple. They were just local folks who had a job here.
Hmm.
So
Alrighty, so like in general, she can kind of get the feel that she's not gonna find any answers in this room.
probably not.
Okay.
For
Uh.
for what it's worth though, you have probably a better sense of this than any of the other PCs in this room. You would realize, particularly with this floor, with the type of records that are in here, this was probably kind of a treasury. It's behind like the clerk's counter. This was like valuable and important goods and information to the operations of this temple. Like this is an important room,
Yeah.
but it wouldn't be a huge shock that you don't find information about the thing you're after in here.
Okay. Um. I have an idea, but I'm gonna offer the floor to anybody else. Let's see
Um,
it.
the only other thing is, Cole, just while he's back here, take a look at this uh, bookshelf and see if it's anything besides more books.
At face value, it's more books. If you would like to check, you can. That would be a different check because you weren't looking for the contents of the box. But at face value, all you see is more books.
I would like to ask about Egg, but I am dying of thirst.
Heck.
So I'll investigate the bookshelf
Okay.
to see if there's anything different about it compared to the other.
Yeah. Then you will like, are there any fancy looking books over there?
Let me check.
You're pretty certain there's nothing here but old books. Nemo going over there, it's more of the same. The response I gave you was factoring in the contents of this bookshelf as well.
Okay.
Some of these things look like they'd probably be valuable to collectors, coming from like your perspective and experience professionally. Like, there's a ton of stuff here you could probably move back home if you felt so inclined, but it would be kind of weird. It would definitely be a departure from some of the other like stuff and people you're used to working with. But some of it
Mm.
would probably do okay. It,
Uh. But like, but she knows she has to take all the books, like the complete set, or could she get away with just a few?
m- Most of them don't seem like they're any kind of a set, except for the ledgers, which are arranged like in chronological order by year. But
Okay.
the stuff that's just like a text on something that isn't temple records, it doesn't seem like any of them are any major like collection of anything.
Uh, um. And maybe she'll take like one or two books about like rituals and such for
Okay,
studies.
okay. Um, I suppose I kind of touched on it. One thing I forgot to describe among the
Mm.
contents of the literature here, you see some of the like the stuff intended to use when training like acolytes or assistants, like fairly new workers into the priesthood in like the trial period. So there there is a little bit about like basic rituals and like foundational teachings relating to whatever the principles of the god are. Um, so like there's some there's like one book you would find that might have some relevant information about like what the capital T Temple of Jurgle back in the day thought happened after people die. I don't. That may or may not be a thing Nemo cares about, but that
Oh,
would
like
be
their interpretation of the afterlife.
kind of, yeah, and like the process of why the stuff that happens in this temple as far as like preparing and like preparing and preserving the bodies in the ways that they do in this process that you did. Apparently this was a process back here. um, it was all significant into some aspect of their belief with the afterlife. And so like it's it's the stuff you would give a 12th grader who says they want to learn and maybe become a priest someday. Not
Oh,
12th grader, 12-year-old.
yeah.
So like it's not a ton, but like you can already tell even if Shoko could read this, she'd lose her shit because this is information she already told you nobody seems to know.
Mm.
So I wanted to mention there was a book on that. I don't have a name for it because I didn't get that far in my prep, but uh,
Yeah.
it's an acolyte training book. We'll call it that.
Yeah. Uh.
So you want to be a priest of
Yeah. uh. Nemo was just gonna like take that book and just like walk over to Yoshi and just like very nonchalantly just put that into the bag.
Fair
Just like,
enough.
excuse me, hun. Just
Pockets her pick.
yeah,
Unpicks your pockets.
yeah. Um, but yeah. Yoshi, you had a question for Egg.
Yeah, I just want to look at egg.
Sure.
I would like to ponder egg, which I'll start with probably just looking at it.
Okay.
Maybe an investigation.
Perceive egg. Yeah,
Perceive
investigation
egg?
would work.
Not. Okay, I was like, perception egg? I know
Sorry.
egg is here.
No, 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 no. I mean, perception could work if you wanted, but
I want to know more detail about egg.
okay.
Okay, good. Tell me about egg.
Good heavens. Okay. Uh,
She has many knowledge about type of egg.
you notice from investigating there are tiny, absolutely tiny gaps nobody should be able to notice except for your significant experience with the tiniest facets and features of an eggshell. There are small gaps here and there between where these ridges, like the bottom of these ridges, I say the bottom, like the part touching the eggshell, and the eggshell itself. So it looks like these may not naturally be part of this egg.
This egg did not grow legs.
They still might be. It's not entirely certain. That might just be like an age thing, because this thing does look like it has experienced some amount of age. But like, it's in remarkably good shape. Whatever was in here probably became a roughly large sized creature like most of the soars you have back home. Um, roughly similar size. It's a little bit bigger than a lot of the soar eggs you would have experience with, but you would have seen some about this size before. Um, the shell is surprisingly thick from what you can see of like the crack. Pretty naturally well defended egg. Um, oh, hi Hoban. We got a Hoban earthquake over here. Hi, buddy. Um,
Mhm.
but if these ridges aren't part of the egg naturally, which again, it's you see enough detail of this that it makes it less clear whether that is the case or not. The downside of a high investigation check revealing things that add more questions. Um, but if not, the fact that they're still as seemingly fused to this egg as possible would have to mean some sort of, if not magic, incredibly powerful adhesive would have to be used for that. Because it seems like if you were to try and pick up that eggshell, you would also pick up those ridges attached, and they would be pretty reliably still attached to it. Sorry, chat. I have to put the cat up because he's
Yeah, I was like,
causing
you chasing the
problems.
cat.
Yeah, even though literally the headset is just on his head, he gets quieter when he moves from the couch.
Um, um, but yes. Otherwise, there are really small, faint, like almost sort of mineral residue, more from like a stone or a rock that got dusted real fine, or like maybe if this wherever this egg was originally collected in a presumably probably a nest, if it was like covered with something that had a liquid or a semi-liquid thing on it, that when it dried it left a tiny little bit of like residue in partial or complete waves or rings on this eggshell. There's a decent amount of that. This thing was probably submerged in something that dried after it was set here. You can't quite tell what, but there's a lot of like ancient residue is the only phrase I can think of to describe it, that very few people would ever notice is there. And it looks like it would probably be pretty hard to like clean off as you're thinking of like how you prep the eggshells for the stuff you do. It looks like it would be kind of a nightmare to have to do. And it looks like, despite the crack in the shell, the membrane inside that actually like contains the egg, the soft protection to contain all the goodness of the egg, that membrane may not have been damaged when whatever cracked this egg happened. So in theory, whatever was in there probably didn't die in whatever caused this egg to take damage. Whatever that means. But you've seen stuff like that enough to feel pretty confident in that assessment.
These answers only confused me more. The player, I'm too tired. I'm gonna
Yeah.
touch this
No,
egg.
I'm
No, that's fair. I was gonna give you I was gonna give you details of egg, and then we call it before you guys move on. So that is all I have to say about egg for now. Feel free to think on it. If you guys have questions about anything else you found, you have time to ponder it, and we can address it next time. As far as I am aware, I believe we'll be same time, same place as normal next week, so Wednesday instead of Thursday. But we'll hash that out and put that in Discord. Either way, yes or no. Until then, thanks everybody for joining. Thanks for playing tonight, guys. Um, this is, if you hadn't noticed, officially your first dungeon crawl of the campaign. So, good job. Here we go. We'll see you next time.
I have more questions
Bye.
than
Thanks,
answers.
Wolf.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
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 I may have goofed that. We'll see. Okay, we'll have to see. Um, yeah, I just realized the thing in my settings, but I'll address that if it needs addressing. So, thanks everybody for hanging out tonight. It was a kind of a funky night getting started, but once we got started, it was a lot of fun. We learned a lot this session. There's a lot of information dropped out, so if you need to go back and refer to anything, check your notes, update your notes, any of that stuff, feel free to do so. The VOD will be on YouTube as always, and yeah, my brain's kind of fried, so I'm just going to leave it at that. Uh, unless you hear otherwise, Wednesday night next week, 7 p.m. Central. Stay tuned. There will be more to follow then.